So it was 4 or 5 years ago that Malaya, who was 3 years old then, and I came to the doors of Canadian Memorial United Church. I can see it from there. That's where I entered. And have you had that experience that you've never been to a place, but you feel at home? And that's how I felt when I came through the front doors. I was surprised by the level of welcome and hospitality that I received, not just from the welcome team by the front door, but from everyone I met that day. And to be honest, I was feeling a little bit suspicious. I was like, is he smiling at me, or is somebody behind me, or do they want something from me? After a few times, I realized that you, are really genuinely kind and welcoming. And when Malaya and I arrive at services late, which is quite often, you don't give us the stinky eye. You smile and you give space for us. And for this warmth and hospitality, we all deserve a yes clap. 1, 2, 3, go. Yes. Hey. When we couldn't attend services for a period of time, I don't feel ashamed about coming back. And it meant a lot to me when Reverend Beth would say, everyone is welcome, whether it's your first time or you've been with us for 20 years, or if you've been away and now you're back, welcome back. And that meant a lot. Malaya participated in the children's programming with Tama and Mary. I felt anxious about her joining the group. It somehow brought me back to when I was a girl and in church and in school, and I was expected to behave in a certain way and like to be seen but not heard. And much to my relief, Tama created an environment of unconditional acceptance and openness. Kids can be kids, and dogs can be dogs, and children are not miniature adults. So, I'd like to offer a wow clap for Tama, Mary, and everybody at the Children and Family Ministry. They're not here, but I hope they will see this in the replay. Okay, let's do a wow clap for them. Oh, you're getting very good at this. I was, and I continue to be blown away by the message that permeates the children's story arts classes, the Sunday services, and all other programming. The message, you are God's beloved, and that you are worthy of God's love. It's not, you are God's beloved if you do this, and it's not, you are worthy of God's love if or when you don't do that. I had a hard time wrapping my head around that concept. To be loved and to be worthy just as I am. So hard. Growing up, I learned from my culture to be afraid of God, because if I sin and if I do wrong, I could be banished to the depths of hell. And who likes going to hell? Considering my track record, that was very possible. But we won't go into that right now. Through their rules, grown-ups in the church, school, and community made me feel that God doesn't leave me much wiggle room. That God was this big, white man sitting in this big throne. Guilt and shame were my constant companions. And yet, there is a disconnect between the God taught to me by my culture and the God I knew in my life. A God who is kind and loving, a God who always provides. Help always arrive, whether from a friend, a family, or even strangers. Our Noche Buena, or Christmas Eve feast, were made of food given to us. A plate of pancit, that's the noodles, Filipino noodles, from a neighbor, and a tray of lumpia from a cousin. When my tatay, or father, had a stroke, we had an astronomical hospital bill. With my annual wage, it would have taken me 20 years to pay. But my friends, David and Linda, gave me the money to cover the expense. I saw God in the courage and determination of my younger brother, who, after graduating high school, left our small city to go to Manila so that he could be free to be himself and to be with his own people. I recognize God in my mother's sacrifice, who worked 15 hours daily at least as a dressmaker and a dressmaking teacher. I saw God in the sacrifice of my older brother, one of the millions of overseas Filipino workers working in all corners of the world without seeing their families for years because their contract allowed them only one visit home every 2 years when they were just starting. Or maybe because they wanted to save money, as much money as possible for their children's education. I saw God in ordinary people doing extraordinary work, like the search for justice and peace. People like one of the Redemptorist priests in our parish church, Father Rudy Romano. And Father Rudy Romano was, he was like Jay. He was the crush ng bayan. Crush ng bayan. Bayan is the nation, so crush of the nation or something. Now Jay is blushing. I won't say who has crushes on Jay. Father Romano was one of the Filipinos who fought with the poor, denouncing the human rights abuses of the dictator Ferdinand Marcos. He fought for and with the poor. He believed that being a Christian meant working for social justice as Jesus did. Almost 30 years ago, on July 11th, I guess that's in 2 days, Father Romano was abducted by unidentified armed men on a busy street in the middle of the day. He was never seen again. It's challenging reconciling the two images of God. On one hand, a strict God who punishes me for my transgression, and on the other, a loving, kind, compassionate, and generous God. A God who was there with me in hard times, like when we had bowls and pots on our floor to catch rainwater during a typhoon. Our roof was leaking. My mother, brother, and I huddled in the corner of a bedroom as my father held onto the part of a roof that was flapping in the wind. And if you can imagine, this is typhoon, so there's like, my father could have been blown by the wind with the GI sheets. When it was dark, we didn't have electricity because we couldn't pay the bill. When family members died unexpectedly and suddenly, I'll never forget the anguished face of my nanay, my mother, as she screamed soundlessly when she received the news that her eldest son, my brother, the migrant worker in the Middle East, was coming home in a box, in a coffin. It's not right for parents to outlive their children. My God was and is not a magician or a fairy godmother. He didn't erase all the sorrow or take away all the pain. A roof was still leaking, but the typhoon didn't go on forever. My brother was still dead, but somehow each day, the memory of him comforted us. When things seemed impossible, when it seemed like my family couldn't survive another day, there was always a nudge, a gentle push, a slight lift that carried us to a new day. My faith sustained me through the many lows of my life. Someone asked me recently if I was a believer. I thought he meant the song. He meant if I believe that there's a God. And I said yes, but I couldn't explain to him. I couldn't explain to him that not believing in a God growing up was not an option for me. To not believe would be to lose all hope. And without hope, I'd lose the will to live. In 2005, I arrived in Canada as a landed immigrant. I am always grateful for the many things Canadians take for granted. Public libraries, public parks, community centers, cultural events, a reliable transit system, roads free of potholes, and a universal healthcare system. I had a surgery a few years after I arrived here, and I was so amazed that when it was time to leave, I just left. I was afraid that this was all like a trap, and then once I stepped out of the hospital premises, somebody would be like, "Hey, you haven't paid your bill." I felt like I got away with something. It was so strange. My life here in Canada was good, very good. I met the man who later became my husband. I had a home that protected me from rain and snow, no leaky roof. Here, I had as much food as I wanted, and I had many lovely clothes from my favorite store, Value Village. But despite the bounty and security, I felt alone and isolated. I felt empty, like a teddy bear without the stuffing inside. I tried hard to fill the void. I thought, maybe after I finish a second degree at a Canadian university, I'll feel complete. Maybe when I get meaningful work that really helps people. Maybe if I have more friends. Maybe if I lose my accent. If I dress better. Maybe if I use big words or insert more esoteric philosophical ideas in conversations. Maybe if I can be funnier. Maybe if I can be more serious and dignified. Maybe if I will have neighbors who know me and I know them. Maybe if I have a child. I thought, I used to be so poor. I want many of the things and pleasures that I have now. Why do I still feel empty inside? After Malaya, my daughter was born, I still felt that deep sense of loneliness. I was anxious and depressed. Maybe even more so because I was deprived of sleep, and as many of you know, parenthood is darn hard. There were days when I wish I could sleep forever and never wake up. With the help of my co-housing community, the support of my husband and dear friends, medication for my postpartum depression and anxiety, lots of therapy, I survived the early years of motherhood. I keep coming back to Canadian Memorial because I feel nourished, I feel settled, grounded. I feel connected to my kind, loving, and generous God. Not to mention the really cool music that we can shake our booties to and To paraphrase St. Augustine's words, I found a way for my restless heart to rest in God with the help of this community. My spiritual journey isn't just about reconnecting with God. It's about accepting and believing that I am God's beloved, that I am worthy, and that I can be myself, my true self, and can still be accepted. One of my precious memories of moments here in the Canadian Memorial is during coffee hour, and I have conversations with a lot of you, and sometimes when I just want to soak in everything and I don't feel like talking anymore, I sit just outside the Great Hall, and Usually there's Connie sitting there, and I would tell her, I just want to be with other people, not to necessarily talk. And she understood, and she understood this. And it was just so good not to be always on, but still be at home. Brené Brown said that the opposite of belonging is not isolation or separation. The opposite of belonging is fitting in. When we try to fit in, we contort ourselves so others will accept us. We adjust ourselves, we modify, we just force ourselves into something or someone that we're really not. In belonging, we can be ourselves. No matter who or what we are accepted. This past May, I asked Beth if I could join the formal welcome ritual. My friend Michelle Pante had hers late last year, and I thought, I should have that one of these days. But this time, I decided to take the leap, partly because Beth was leaving, but mostly because I felt ready. I told her that this community has always had its arms open to me. The formal welcome ritual was me stepping into your open and welcoming arms. Thank you for giving me a seat at your table. I appreciate how everyone is welcome here, no matter who they are and who they love, no matter their cultural and religious background. At Canadian Memorial, everybody has a seat. Thank you for showing up as your authentic selves, and it's allowing me to be my authentic self too. Thank you for helping me and many others feel that we belong, truly belong, in each other, but especially in God's love. We are all God's beloved, and we are all worthy of her love. So, thank you so much for listening to me. And maybe we can end with a fireworks clap. And some of you may be like, oh my God, what was the fireworks clap? So let's review the fireworks clap, and we will do it all together. Okay, 2 claps to the side, 2 claps to the other side, 2 claps up, 2 claps down, 2 claps wherever you want, and hallelujah. Okay, let's do the fireworks clap. Ready, go.
Hallelujah.
Thank you.